I'm kind of embarrassed by what suggestions I used to give people when I first became a clinical psychologist when they said they wanted to feel like more joy and more enjoyment and relax more. My name is Rebecca Anderson. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I have learned a lot more about joy over the last few years. And I want to speak about specifically play today, but I'm just going to start by saying joy is very different to amusement. Amusement might be like watching a half decent TV show, going for an average walk outside. It's nice. 15 minutes after, you're just back to normal, back to baseline. Whereas joy is something that fills you up with warmth. It makes you fall back in love with life itself again. You lose track of time. This is much easier to tap into, hopefully, when you're a child. Like, just for me, I would play with a whole bunch of the neighborhood kids and we'd just run around for hours and hours and in groups and just be laughing and making jokes. For me, that's where I got a lot of joy. I apologize for the birds outside, if you can hear them. Australia, hey? But there's a man called René Proyer, I hope I've said that right, who has established that there's 4 types of play in his research. And I think it's really helpful because it helps you, if you have language about how to speak about your play, to then be able to implement it more in your life. So the first one is called other-directed playfulness. Think of this like social play. These are the people who thrive in group situations where there's banter. Doesn't even have to be a group, but just like with other people, like playfulness with others. People who can be self-deprecating and use humor to bridge gaps in situations, may be able to like make something awkward less awkward. And just make sure you're having a good time, everyone's having a good time. The opposite of this might be someone who feels very like stiff and forced in social situations and feels like they're not sure where to jump in, finds it all quite stressful, like the give and take feels like quite difficult, and you'll probably feel a bit like lonely or disconnected or misunderstood kind of in those environments. The second is lighthearted playfulness. This is like the spontaneous, playful people. This is people who see life more like a playground rather than a battleground. Say last year that I saw life both ways, both as a battleground and both as a playground. These are people who can just enjoy life. There doesn't have to be a purpose to everything that they do. Things can be silly and playful. They turn a mundane chore into like a race, or they make a silly mistake and they can make a joke of it. It's not that serious. People who struggle with this are going to be people who feel like everything's quite heavy, everything's an obligation or a chore, things have to be done the right way. They're constantly maybe under time pressure and efficiency. The third one is intellectual playfulness. So this is those people who are very curious about themselves, others, the world. They love bouncing ideas back and forth. They love learning. They love sharing. They're fascinated by ideas and coming up with new ideas, like putting 2 different fields together to come up with a new idea. Very creative people. These are people who love the what if scenarios. They might love puzzles, codes, riddles. They just find it so satisfying. People who struggle with this might be people who are just quite cognitively more rigid. There's kind of one answer to things. They just want the one answer. They don't get as much enjoyment about tossing around ideas. It just feels maybe a little bit pointless to them. See things as kind of facts rather than possibility. And the fourth way is whimsical playfulness. And these are people who find the weird and the wonderful and the quirky super enticing. These are the people who might love dressing up in a different era or going to graveyards or collecting weird and wonderful objects, who find the odd parts of life beautiful and wonderful and weird. And people who might struggle a bit more with this are maybe people who have lost a little bit of that sense of like wonder or been able to see the world in a playful kind of way. I think we can have little bits of all of them, all the different types. And like I said, it also depends on your current life circumstances. And if you have a lot of stuff coming in, it might be a bit harder to see things as lighthearted. And once that stuff kind of remits or you sort it out, you might be able to see things as a bit more playful again. But I think it's helpful to think, and I would love to know what style you think you're predominantly in. Is it other focused? Is it lighthearted? Is it intellectual playfulness? Or is it more whimsical? I want to finish with this quote from Albert Einstein, who said, "Play is the highest form of research." And he loved playing music. And so for him, a lot of his mathematical kind of discoveries came after playing with music. And he saw that the two were completely linked. The times that I am most inspired is often when I've been spontaneous or laughing or relaxing or doing something unusual or fun. It makes me think about wider possibilities in life. So I hope that was helpful. If it was, please subscribe and comment below, and I'll speak to you soon.